The first time Victor Romano saw Clara Bennett touch his brother's face, he almost ordered 3 men killed. Not because Julian was touching her, because Clara was smiling. It was the kind of smile Victor had never seen inside his family. Varm, unprotected, real. And the worst part was that Julian looked at her like she was the only woman in the room. Victor stood at the far end of the penthouse with a glass of whiskey untouched in his hand. He watched. He listened. He said nothing. Clara laughed softly at something Julian whispered into her ear. Julian placed one hand against her waist. Victor's fingers tightened around the glass. His security chief, Marcus, noticed. Sir? Victor didn't look at him. Get everyone out. Marcus glanced toward the couple. Everyone? Everyone except Julian. Marcus hesitated. Victor finally turned. His expression was calm. That was always when people should have been most afraid. Now, across the room, Clara looked up. Her eyes met Victor's. For one strange second, neither moved. She didn't know who he was. She didn't know what he had done. She didn't know that half the city whispered his name like a warning. She only knew that the man staring at her looked furious. And somehow hurt. 3 months earlier, Clara Bennett had been sitting in the back office of her family's restaurant with a stack of unpaid bills in front of her. The restaurant was called Bennett's Table. Her parents had opened it 27 years earlier. It wasn't glamorous. It didn't have chandeliers or celebrity customers. It had scratched wooden tables, handwritten specials, old photographs on the walls, and recipes her mother refused to write down because she claimed they would never taste right if someone else made them. Clara loved the place. That was why watching it die felt like watching part of her family disappear. The landlord had given them 60 days. The bank wanted payment. The kitchen needed repairs. And the city had announced plans to redevelop the entire neighborhood. Clara had spent weeks looking for investors. Nobody wanted to save a small family restaurant. Not when they could make more money turning the property into luxury apartments. That afternoon, her father sat across from her. He looked older than he had a year earlier. "We can sell," he said quietly. Clara looked up. "No, Clara, no. We're drowning. I know. You shouldn't have to carry this." She closed the folder. "I'm not carrying it alone." Her father smiled sadly. "You always were stubborn. I learned from you." He looked toward the restaurant. "Your mother would hate seeing this place empty." Clara swallowed. "Then we don't let it become empty." That was when her phone rang. Unknown number. She almost ignored it. Instead, she answered. "Hello." A man's voice spoke calmly. "Mrs. Bennett?" "Yes. I have a business proposition." Clara frowned. "What kind?" "A temporary personal arrangement." She almost laughed. "That's vague. You would be compensated very generously." "Who are you?" "My name is Julian Romano." Clara didn't know the name. "Not yet." He continued. "I represent a wealthy young man who requires a girlfriend for 3 months." Silence. Clara stared at her father. "Excuse me?" "A public relationship. Dinners, events, social appearances, nothing inappropriate." "Why me?" "Because you're discreet." "How do you know that?" "I've done my research." Her stomach tightened. "How much?" Sebastian named a number. Clara stopped breathing. It was enough to save the restaurant. Enough to pay the bank. Enough to repair the kitchen. Enough to keep her parents from losing everything they had built. She closed her eyes. "This is a joke." "It isn't." "And the man? You'll meet him tonight. Why does he need a fake girlfriend?" "A Pause." "Because his family expects him to settle down." Clara almost refused. Then she looked through the office window at her father's tired face. She thought about the restaurant, the unpaid bills, the possibility of losing everything. 3 months? Exactly. And I can leave whenever I want? Of course. No physical relationship. That will not be required. No lying about my family. Agreed. And if I feel unsafe, I'm done. Another pause. Agreed. Clara took a breath. Then I'll do it. She didn't know she had just accepted a contract that would place her inside one of Chicago's most dangerous families. She didn't know the man she was supposed to date was the younger brother of the city's most feared mafia boss. And she certainly didn't know the older brother would eventually become the man she would have to fear most. Not because he wanted to hurt her, because he would want her too much. Julian Romano was charming. That was the first thing Clara noticed. He met her at a private restaurant overlooking the Chicago River. He wore a cream-colored suit, smiled easily, and spoke to her like they had known each other for years. "You're Clara. You're Julian. Unfortunately," she smiled, "I was told you were wealthy, painfully, and spoiled? Unfairly. And difficult? Absolutely." Clara laughed. Julian grinned. "I think we're going to get along." He explained the arrangement. 3 months, public appearances, family dinners, charity events, photographs, nothing more. Clara agreed. Then the elevator doors opened. The entire atmosphere changed. Julian stopped smiling. Clara turned. A tall man walked into the room. Black suit, black shirt, dark hair, broad shoulders, a face that looked carved from stone. He didn't need bodyguards. The room itself seemed to move around him. "Julian Sahil, my brother." Victor Romano looked at Clara. His eyes stopped on her and didn't move. Julian stood. "Victor." Victor ignored him. "Who is she?" Clara raised an eyebrow. "I can answer for myself." Victor looked at her. Something flickered in his eyes. "You can. Clara Bennett." "I know." That made her uncomfortable. Julian stepped between them. "She's my girlfriend." Victor looked at him. "Since when?" "Today." Victor's gaze returned to Clara. "Convenient." Clara folded her arms. "You don't seem happy." "I'm not." "That's unfortunate." Julian tried not to laugh. Victor's eyes narrowed. For the first time in years, someone had spoken to him without fear. And she was standing beside his younger brother. Victor turned to Julian. "We need to talk. Later. Now." "Julian Sahil." "Fine." Victor walked away. Julian looked at Clara. "Don't take it personally." "I don't." She watched Victor disappear. "Your brother doesn't like me." Julian smiled. "That's not true." "What makes you say that?" "He doesn't like anyone." Victor's investigation began that night. Clara Bennett, 29, no criminal record, no suspicious financial activity, family-owned restaurant, father Daniel Bennett, mother Elena Bennett, no significant romantic history, no connection to rival organizations, no known reason to target Julian. Victor read the report twice, then a third time. Something didn't make sense. People didn't enter his family accidentally, especially not women who suddenly appeared beside Julian. He called Marcus. "Find out who hired her." Marcus paused. "I thought Sebastian arranged it." Victor's expression hardened. "Exactly. Should I ask him?" "No." Victor looked at Clara's photograph. "Find out without telling him." The first month was supposed to be simple. It wasn't. Julian was genuinely fun to be around. He took Clara to museums, private dinners, charity galas, rooftop restaurants. He listened when she talked about her family. He visited Bennett's table. He insisted on eating there. And he treated her parents with genuine kindness. But everywhere they went, Victor appeared. At the charity gala, at the restaurant, at the theater, at the private club, always watching, always silent, always somehow close enough to intervene. One night, Clara finally confronted him. She found Victor standing alone on a balcony overlooking the city. "Do you have a hobby?" He turned. "What? Following me?" "I don't follow you. You appear everywhere. Chicago isn't that large. It's 8 million people." Victor stared at her. She sighed. "Why don't you like me?" "I don't trust you." "Why?" "Because you're dating my brother." "That's your reason?" "Yes." "Do you distrust every woman he dates?" "Yes." "Even the ones who have been with him for years?" "Especially those." Clara laughed. "You have serious issues." Victor's expression didn't change. "Probably." She started to leave. "Clara." She stopped. He looked at her. "Stay away from the river tonight." She frowned. "Why?" "Just do it." "That's not an answer." "It's the only one you're getting." She walked away. 3 hours later, a car exploded near the river. Victor had known. Clara didn't. After that night, Victor's behavior changed. He stopped merely investigating her. He began protecting her. A driver appeared outside the restaurant. She refused it. The next day, another appeared. She refused again. Victor came personally. You're using the car. No, you are. You're not my employer. No, you're not my boyfriend. No, you're not my father. Victor's jaw tightened. No, then stop telling me what to do. He stepped closer. His voice dropped. I'm telling you because someone tried to kill you. Clara's anger disappeared. What? Victor looked at her. The explosion wasn't an accident. She stared. Who? We don't know. Why would anyone want to hurt me? Victor hesitated. That's what I'm trying to find out. For the first time, Clara saw something beneath his coldness. Concern. Real concern. She whispered, Why? Victor looked away. Because you're Julian's girlfriend. It was a lie, and they both knew it. The problem was that Clara began noticing things. Victor remembered her coffee order. He noticed when she was tired. He knew when she skipped lunch. When her father's restaurant needed emergency repairs, Victor somehow knew before Clara told anyone. When she was sick, medicine appeared at her apartment. She confronted him. Did you send this? Victor looked at the medicine on her kitchen counter. Yes, you can't keep doing this. Doing what? Taking care of me. His eyes met hers. Why? Because I don't need you to. I know. Then why? Silence. Victor stepped closer. Because I want to. Clara's breath caught. He was close enough that she could feel the warmth of him. His gaze dropped briefly to her lips. Then he stepped away. I shouldn't have said that. She stared at him. Why? Because you're my brother's girlfriend. Clara looked down. Neither of them knew how much longer that lie could survive. Julian began noticing too. One evening, he found Victor standing outside Clara's apartment. Julian stopped. What are you doing here? Victor turned. Leaving? You've been watching her. I protect my family. She's not your family. Victor said nothing. Julian's expression changed. You like her. Victor looked at him. Don't. You do. She's your girlfriend. Julian smiled sadly. No. Victor's eyes narrowed. Julian continued. She's not my girlfriend. Silence. Victor stared. What? Julian looked toward Clara's apartment. The relationship is fake. Victor's expression hardened. Who knows? You. Who else? Sebastian. Victor went still. Why? Julian lowered his voice. Because I needed a public relationship. Sebastian arranged the contract. Victor stared at him. Does Clara know who you are? No. Does she know what this family does? No. Then you put her in danger. Julian's expression darkened. I know. Victor's voice became dangerously quiet. End it. Julian stared at him. Why? Because she's not part of this. Julian smiled. You still don't understand. Victor waited. I think you're the reason she can't be. The second month was worse. Because Victor stopped pretending his feelings didn't exist. He became jealous. Not dramatically. Never publicly. But Clara noticed. When another man spoke to her too long at a gala, Victor appeared beside her. When Julian kissed her cheek for the cameras, Victor left the room. When Clara laughed with another man, Victor's expression changed. One evening, Clara found him alone in the elevator. She entered. The doors closed. Silence. Then she said, Are you jealous? Victor looked straight ahead. No. She smiled. You are? No. Victor. He looked at her. His eyes were dark. You shouldn't ask questions you don't want answered. She swallowed. What if I do? The elevator stopped. Neither moved. Victor stepped closer. He lifted his hand toward her face. Stopped inches away. His fingers curled. Then dropped. Then you'll hate the answer. The doors opened. He walked away. Clara remained inside, heart pounding. That night, Julian called her. We need to talk. She met him at a Kia cafe. He looked exhausted. I'm sorry. For what? The contract. She froze. What? Julian told her everything. The fake relationship, the money, his family, the Romano organization, Victor, all of it. Clara felt the room spinning. So you're a mafia family? Yes. And Victor? He's the head of it. She stood. You lied to me. I know. You used me. I know. Then why should I trust you? Julian's eyes filled with regret. You shouldn't. Clara left. She didn't see the black SUV following her. She didn't see the second vehicle behind it. And she didn't know someone had been waiting for this exact moment. Clara barely reached her apartment. The lights were off. She opened the door. Something felt wrong. Then a hand grabbed her from behind. She screamed. A gunshot exploded. The attacker missed. The apartment door burst open. Victor stormed inside. He moved with terrifying speed. 2 men followed. Within seconds, the attacker was disarmed. Victor grabbed Clara. Are you hurt? She shook. No. He looked at her face. Are you sure? Yes. His hands remained around her shoulders. For 1 second, his composure disappeared. You could have died. Clara looked into his eyes. You were following me. Yes. You lied. Yes. You knew. I knew someone was coming for you. Why didn't you tell me? Because I knew you'd leave. Her voice broke. You had no right. I know. Then why? Victor's voice became almost a whisper. Because I couldn't lose you. Silence. Clara stared at him. You don't love me. Victor closed his eyes. When he opened them, there was no denial left. I do. Clara pulled away. This can't happen. I know. You're his brother. I know. I was hired to date him. I know. You are the last man I should trust. Victor nodded. I know. She stared at him. Then why are you still here? His answer was immediate. Because if I walk away, I won't be able to protect you. You don't get to decide that. No. He looked at her. You do. That was the first time Victor gave her control. And it changed everything. The truth behind Clara's contract soon emerged. Sebastian Romano had not chosen Clara randomly. Her father, Daniel Bennett, had once worked for the Romano family, not as a criminal. As an accountant, years earlier, Daniel had discovered that someone inside the organization was secretly stealing money and transferring it into hidden offshore accounts. He had copied the evidence. Then he disappeared. Sebastian had spent years searching for the missing records. He believed Daniel had hidden them somewhere. The restaurant, Clara, her mother's belongings, everything was searched. Nothing was found. Until Victor discovered an old photograph in Clara's apartment. A photograph of her father standing beside a young Victor. On the back was a message. The truth is where my daughter feels safest. Victor immediately understood. Bennett's table. They returned to the restaurant after midnight. Clara opened the old kitchen storage room. Her father's old recipe books were still there. Victor examined the shelves. Your father loved this place. More than anything, Clara pulled out an old cookbook. Something fell from behind it. A small brass key. Victor stared. Do you recognize it? Clara shook her head. They followed the key to a locked cabinet beneath the floor. Inside was a metal box. And inside the box, financial records, photographs, names, payments, and one final letter. Clara opened it. Her father's handwriting appeared. Clara, if you're reading this, then someone finally found what I spent my life hiding. Do not trust the person who arranged your relationship with Julian. He is closer to the family than anyone realizes. And if Victor is standing beside you when you read this, tell him this. I never betrayed your family. Victor's face changed. Daniel had written more. Your father trusted me with something I could never return. His life, and now I trust you with his daughter. Victor looked at Clara. She was crying. I don't understand. Victor's voice was quiet. I think my father knew. Knew what? That Sebastian was stealing from us. The room went silent. Sebastian attacked before sunrise. Black SUVs surrounded the restaurant. Clara looked through the window. There are too many. Victor stepped in front of her. Stay behind me. She shook her head. No, Clara. I am done standing behind men. He looked at her. For the first time, he almost smiled. All right. He handed her the evidence. Then stand beside me. The doors burst open. Chaos erupted. Victor's men moved through the restaurant. Julian arrived moments later. For the first time, the brothers fought side by side. Sebastian entered through the kitchen. He held a gun. You should have left this alone. Victor stepped forward. You killed my father. Sebastian smiled. I saved this family. You destroyed it. I made it powerful. Victor's expression was ice. You made it afraid. Sebastian raised the weapon. Clara stepped forward. You're wrong. He looked at her. Your father was a fool. No. Clara held up the ledger. He was brave. Sebastian fired. Victor moved. The bullet struck his shoulder. Clara screamed. Victor stumbled. Julian tackled Sebastian. The room erupted into chaos. Clara dropped beside Victor. Blood stained his shirt. Victor, I'm fine. You're bleeding. I've had worse. You could have died. His eyes found hers. Not tonight. She pressed her hand against the wound. He covered it with his, stay with me. I am. No. His voice softened. Stay with me. She understood. He wasn't talking about the shooting. He was asking her not to leave him. Sebastian was arrested. The evidence destroyed his network. The Romano organization began changing. Victor dismantled the parts of the empire responsible for the violence that had defined his family for generations. Julian left the criminal side of the business entirely. Bennett's table was saved. But Clara still had one decision left. Victor found her on the rooftop of the restaurant one evening. Chicago glittered below them. He stood several feet away. He didn't approach. Clara noticed. You usually don't keep your distance. I'm trying. Why? Because you told me I don't get to decide your life. She looked at him. And now? Now I wait. For what? For you. Silence. Clara walked toward him. You know what hurt most? Victor's expression tightened. The lies? She shook her head. That you thought you had to control everything. I did. Ava May. Yes. Why? His answer came slowly. Because everyone I've ever loved became a weakness someone could use against me. Clara's expression softened. I am not your weakness. Victor looked at her. No. You know what I am? He waited. The person who can tell you no. A faint smile appeared. Yes. And you're going to respect it. Always. She stepped closer. And if I say yes? His eyes changed. Then I'll spend the rest of my life making sure you never regret it. Clara smiled. That's dangerously close to romantic. I'm not good at romantic. I noticed. He laughed quietly. It was the first time she had heard him laugh without restraint. Then she touched his face. Victor froze. She smiled. You don't have to stop this time. His hand came gently to her waist. He waited. She closed the distance. Their kiss was slow, careful, not the kiss of a mafia boss claiming something. The kiss of a man finally understanding that love could not be forced. 6 months later, Bennett's table was thriving. The restaurant had been renovated. The old wooden tables remained. The photographs remained. The recipes remained. But now, the place was full every night. Victor never publicly called it his restaurant. He simply made sure it survived. Julian became one of Clara's closest friends. He teased Victor constantly, especially whenever Clara was around. One evening, Julian leaned toward Clara. You know he was terrifying before you. Victor looked up. Julian. He used to scare entire rooms into silence. Clara smiled. Now? Julian glanced at Victor. Now he asked permission before holding your hand. Victor gave him a warning look. Clara laughed. I like that. Victor looked at her. So do I. 1 year after the contract began, Clara returned to the penthouse where everything had started. The same windows, the same city, the same marble floor. But everything felt different. Julian stood near the bar. Victor stood beside the balcony. Clara walked toward them. Julian smiled. Remember when I hired you? Clara laughed. I remember when you lied to me. I apologized. You did. and you forgave me. Eventually, Julian looked at Victor. And somehow, my brother got the girl. Victor Sahil, you're never going to stop saying that. Never. Clara looked at Victor. He walked toward her. No guards. No weapons. No intimidating entourage. Just Victor. He stopped in front of her. I have something for you. He opened a small box. Inside was a key. Clara frowned. What is it? Your restaurant. She stared. What? It's legally yours. I already own it. Now you own the building. Her eyes filled with tears. Victor, I don't want you to owe me anything. He closed her fingers around the key. I want you to have something that no one can take away. She looked at him. You've changed. Because of you. She smiled. No. Victor shook his head. You taught me that protection isn't possession. He touched her cheek. That was something I needed to learn. Clara stepped closer. And what did you learn about love? Victor looked into her eyes. That the woman I was most afraid to love became the only person I couldn't imagine living without. She kissed him. Behind them, Julian groaned dramatically. I really should have hired someone less attractive. Clara laughed against Victor's shoulder. Victor looked at his brother. Leave. Julian smiled. Gladly. He disappeared through the doors. Victor looked back at Clara. The city stretched behind them. Chicago had once feared him. Men had whispered his name. Enemies had crossed streets to avoid him. He had spent his entire life believing power meant control. But Clara had taught him otherwise. Power was letting someone walk away and trusting them to come back. Power was protecting someone without owning them. Power was loving someone enough to give them a choice. And Clara had chosen him. Not because he was a mafia boss. Not because he was rich. Not because he could destroy anyone who threatened her. She chose him because, beneath all the power and darkness, she had finally seen the man who had been hiding there all along. The man who watched from across rooms. The man who remembered her coffee. The man who stood outside her door during thunderstorms. The man who had once believed loving her would destroy his family, and who eventually realized that losing her would destroy him. Clara rested her head against his chest. Victor? Yes? Do you regret any of it? He knew exactly what she meant. The lies. The contract. The jealousy. The danger. The war. He looked down at her. I regret hurting you. She nodded. But not loving me? His arms tightened gently around her. Never. Outside, Chicago glittered beneath the evening sky. Somewhere below, people still whispered about Victor Romano. They called him ruthless, cold, dangerous, a man who could make an entire organization disappear with one decision. But Clara knew something the rest of the city didn't. The most feared mafia boss in Chicago had one weakness: hair. And strangely, he no longer hated that. Because the woman he had once watched from a distance had become the one person he trusted enough to hold his heart. The woman who had entered his family as his brother's fake girlfriend had become his real love. And the secret arrangement that was supposed to last only 3 months had changed all their lives forever. Clara had accepted the contract because she needed money. She thought she was pretending to love a wealthy young man. She thought Victor Romano hated her. She thought the most dangerous thing in his family was the mafia. She was wrong. The most dangerous thing was falling in love with a man who had spent his entire life believing he could never be loved. And Victor? He had believed Clara was a threat to his family. Then she became the reason he was willing to save it. The contract had started with a lie, but the love that survived it was real. And somewhere in the city, behind the lights and the glass towers, Chicago's most feared mafia boss finally understood something no amount of power had ever taught him. You can control a city. You can control an empire. You can control your enemies. But you cannot command a woman's heart. You can only become worthy of it. And Clara Bennett had chosen to give him hers.